Peptides are powerful and often misunderstood.
and we're here to change that, one conversation at a time.
I'm Dr. Kylie Burton.
And I'm Jessica Bricky.
This is Pep Talk, Peptides Unpacked. Science made simple, results made real. According to the CDC, nearly three-quarters of adults in the United States are overweight or obese, and over 40% are considered obese. And we know that carries increased risk for things like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and metabolic dysfunction.
And honestly, that's why we are doing, oh, no, what is going on?
Okay, keep going. We'll just have it edited. I have good catch.
Yeah, because I copied that over. Okay, we'll have to have her edit that out. Joining us today is my friend Taryn Phillip, and Taryn's walked through a lot when it comes to her health, the kind of challenges that can leave people feeling stuck and unsure, and where to turn next. I think so many people listening are going to hear parts of their own story in hers. At one point, she made a decision to try something that a lot of people still misunderstand today, something many people dismiss as unhealthy or as a shortcut. But if you've been listening to this podcast, you know that peptides are neither. And for Taryn, that decision ended up changing the trajectory of her health. Taryn, I'm really grateful that you are willing to sit with us today and share your story. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Before we get into everything that has happened the last few years, I want to go back to what life was like for you when you were growing up.
Uh, it wasn't easy. I am a survivor of childhood abuse and neglect. The stories that I could regale you with would make your stomach curdle. Um, but it made me who I am. I moved out when I was 14. I had a car at the time because somebody had to bring parents back and forth from their jobs, the bar. Um, And when I moved out, I lived in my car for about a week. And then my grandmother, who was a local physical education teacher, found out and very adamantly insisted that I live with her.
I'm so grateful that you had her close to you and rescue you at 14 years old. I can't imagine moving out of your house and living in that situation. But you and I have talked on the side, so I know a lot of your story, and I do know that food for you was scarce at times.
Yes. I grew up having squirrel stew and venison and a lot of preservatives because everything was canned or whatever the food pantry gave out, or there was nothing.
Right. So do you think that those you mentioned to me too that during your childhood, you carried extra weight. So did that come early on at this point, or was it kind of after you left the house that that started to
Oh
change?
no, it was like eighth grade. I was very developmentally regular on kindergarten, first, second, and then third grade, things became a little bit more chaotic at my house and I ballooned. Like I was not a healthy looking 8-year-old.
So you carried that with you through your teen years and through life. But you were also an athlete.
Yes. So I played what I could. So I did Little League. Um, but I wasn't really interested in sports until my grandmother taught me how to pitch. Um, and then
Like
probably around,
softball pitching?
yes.
Nice.
And then I was one of the first windmill pitchers in our league because before that, everything was the lob. Um, and I fell in love with the sport and it gave me an escape. So around 12 years old, so going into end of sixth grade, going into seventh grade, I slimmed down again. I was still like I was brolic. I was very broad-shouldered,
Thick, thicker,
wide-hipped.
maybe
Yeah,
thick. Yeah,
yeah, but I was muscular. Like
right.
I had horses at the time. Like I worked on a
You
horse
know,
farm
I
at the
think of
time.
like softball girls, they're like big girls, but solid muscle.
Yeah, so I hit like max height in 7th grade. I was 5'7" as a 12-year-old
Wow.
Wow.
and probably 150 to 180 pounds at the time. And I was my legs. You've seen my kids.
Yeah.
They get their legs from me, not my
She
husband.
breeds, she has the most incredibly athletic kids. She has given that to her children. They're amazing.
They are. They're good kids.
I just want to point
Um,
out one quick piece of your story because you said, there was so much chaos at the home. And I think when we walk down the streets, when we get in wherever we're going, we are quick to judge. And it's a human nature to judge. And we think, oh, well, you're just sitting on the couch and eating potato chips, or, we have those quick judgments, and then we totally get it completely wrong when it comes to diet, quote unquote, dieting, and it's just calories in, calories out. There's so much more that goes on behind the scenes. And I remember when 2020 hit, and we all know what happened in that year. And I got so many phone calls at the office from mothers who were concerned about their kids because their life had just been taken from them. Teenagers specifically, anxiety, depression hit because suddenly you've been dreaming about prom and now prom doesn't exist. Things like that. And then I saw a comment on socials where one of the moms was just like, if we'd all just stay inside our house for 14 days, it would be over. And I said to her, I said, I'm grateful that your kids have a safe place to go home to where there's food in the pantry. Because in most cases, school is a safe place for others. And so I think before we move into your journey, but just to capture ourselves and realize, we're quick to judge and we have no right to be judging about how somebody looks and just assuming that it's purely diet, because it's not.
Agreed.
All
I
right, keep
love
going,
that.
girls.
Thank you for bringing that up, Kylie, because it's a really excellent point to make. And so Taryn, then so tell me kind of about next stages in life. Like where did we go from there, from being, getting out, escaping this house, to kind of the next stage and where you are? I know you had a few little things along the way to where you are today.
Uh, so living with my grandmother, I picked up some of her personality traits, which is very opinionated and strong-willed. I became a local volunteer firefighter, in spite of the lack of support from my father, because girls don't do that, I was told. So I went full bore with it, became interior qualified, the whole 9 yards. And in that process, I met my husband at 17 years old because I was at a local, just a Memorial Day party for another neighboring fire department. And he was an honorary member. He had been there and he had moved out of the district. And he showed up, and I was actually friends with his father before I knew Alan because I used to do competitions with them. And I'm sitting on the picnic table next to John, and I see Alan walk in, and I was like, "Who is that?" Because I knew everybody. And he goes, "Oh, you don't know him?" And I was like, "Clearly not." So I actually got introduced from his father, and that was May 31st, 2004, and he hasn't been able to get rid of me.
But young, 17, and you found your life mate at 17 years old, but
And he was not 17, and it
he's a little
created
older.
a lot of dissent within the family because, and honestly, I have a daughter who is 18 years old. I would have an issue with it. He is 11 years older than me. I was given an ultimatum, like break up with him or move out. So I moved out.
But your maturity level at 17, having gone through what you went through, was
Yeah.
significantly different than the average 17-year-old. You were not a 17-year-old,
No,
you
no, I
know,
wasn't. I wasn't able to be.
right.
Um, so yeah, I ended up moving in with Alan, and typical teenage life. Ended up getting pregnant,
Yeah.
had Andrew, and that's really where things started to snowball because at 13 weeks pregnant with Andrew at 18 years old, I was put on bed rest.
Oh,
And I don't do well with inactivity. I do use a busy schedule to mask a lot of my insecurities and trauma because if you're too busy to think about it, you don't. I went
Yeah.
from playing in 4 to 5 softball leagues, being in college,
Taryn,
being a volunteer
Taryn, can
fire
I just
department.
commemorate you for knowing that. For
I'm
simply like stating that fact that you're so far beyond so many people in just life in general because you understand what happened to you affects your ability to make your decisions now. And yes, I don't know how you could do bed rest. I would go crazy too because I like to be busy.
Oh, it was hell. And I'm 18 years old and I'm doing all these activities and filling my schedule and I'm going to college and I'm playing college softball and I'm doing nursing. And they're like, oh, so second trimester, you have preeclampsia. So now you have to be on bed rest and lay on your left side for the majority of your pregnancy.
Tough.
Oh,
Oof.
So I gained a significant amount of weight, 98 pounds. Andrew came out 9 pounds, 9 ounces.
Yeah. So 90 pounds of non-baby weight.
Right. I mean, there's amniotic fluid in placenta, but it wasn't going to make up 90 pounds.
Right. Exactly.
Um, I breastfed, so I lost some of the weight, but I really didn't slim down. I was carrying a decent amount. I think when I got pregnant with the triplets,
Oh my
I
gosh.
was, yeah,
bless your
life likes
heart.
life likes to mess with me. Um, I was well over 200 pounds still, but luckily with them, I only gained 39 pounds because I was already fat. They were living off the land.
I
And I
love your
wasn't on.
sense of humor during this.
Well, that she has developed a wicked sense of humor. That's one of her coping tools, and she's got a probably one of the best sense of humors I've ever come across. So you see that.
Thank you. And then they were born, and I made it pretty far with them. 10 days in the NICU, it wasn't terrible. But again, breastfed and didn't lose a lot. But now I have 4 kids, 2 and under,
Yeah.
and
Holy
I had no
moly.
family support.
Can you
And
imagine?
my husband was a firefighter, so I was alone a lot.
Mm.
So you go into survival mode, and of course, the hormonal influx and the cortisone or cortisol rather. Uh, it was just, I ballooned. And then I got to the point where I was significantly unhealthy and unhappy. I'm 22 years old and things are already going downhill. They removed my gallbladder, which I kind of regret. And then in 2010, I had a lap band. And in 2011, I ended up, or 2012 rather, I needed a revision because it tore my stomach.
So you had a lap band in 2010. Did you lose weight with the lap band?
Oh, I lost a lot of weight with a lap band.
Okay.
But it wasn't, I was also 22 years old. So, I mean, a little bit of a diet aid and I was doing great. I didn't have a lot of complications and I don't know what happened, but in 2011, I broke my ankle and needed an ORIF. And after that surgery, my lap band was just very uncomfortable, very messed up. I kept advocating for myself, like something is wrong. They would take fluid out, put it back in, take it out, put it back in. I was throwing up. Then I started vomiting blood. In June of 2012, I called. They're like, oh, it was, I think, a Thursday. They're like, oh, come in on Monday. I was like, no, not happening. So I knew that Bon Secours by us does bariatric surgeries. I went to their ER and I was told, like, we don't like to touch other surgeons' sites, but we'll do a workup to see what's going on. And I was admitted and had emergency surgery because my stomach had torn and the lap band had slipped. And if I kept vomiting, it would have been catastrophic.
Holy cow.
So yeah, needless to say, they put a new lap band in only because they needed something to hold my stomach together.
Wow.
It was never used.
Holy cow, Taryn. I don't think I knew about that surgery. That's wild. So, okay, so that's now 13 years ago. You
Right,
had this.
2012. And I slowly started gaining weight again.
Okay.
And by 2020, so 8 years, I was the unhealthiest I'd ever been. I was over 400 pounds. I was still trying to do everything that I normally do. I was coaching, I was playing softball, I was living, like I didn't let my weight stop me, but I couldn't sit on the ground without leaning back because my stomach was constricting my lungs. So I couldn't take deep breaths. Running was a joke. I was so slow. Like I could turn any home run into a single. Um, but I kept pushing through and kept trying. And then my uncle passed away in 2021. And I really think the stress of that is what triggered my MS. Um, because after that, I just started going downhill even faster. I lost my depth perception, so I could no longer play softball. I lost a lot of my coordination. And anytime I went to a doctor, it was, well, have you considered calorie restriction and increasing your exercise regimen?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
This is,
Yes.
yeah, you have
Eat
anxiety,
less, move more.
and here's an
Yep.
anti-anxiety
And
med.
yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
So let's
So,
back up for one quick sec. So you were diagnosed in 2021 with MS.
yes, in November of 2021, I was diagnosed the day before Thanksgiving.
Okay. So you were feeling awful,
Horrible, awful.
and this is what came out of it.
Yes,
And your
I
kids
had
are what? Teenagers? 13, 15?
in 2021, yeah, they're 18 now, so 15, 13.
Yeah.
And then Andrew was 15.
Right.
So, and we had just survived, like we're going through COVID. I mean, don't get me wrong, um, I kept them in baseball. We had illegal games and practices
Oh,
because
girl, I'm in Utah. We didn't obey any of the rules.
we didn't, yeah, no.
We get it.
If they wanted to, Cuomo could have come and stopped me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
That
again,
was
I think that's
probably
what,
safer. Like it was a good spot for them because, like I said earlier, teenagers' lives were just thrown upside down, and people didn't. We're still. I think we're still gonna have repercussions from it.
I think that the kids too, and adults that were the most active, the ones that you consider to be the healthiest mentally, that they are the ones that struggled the most because everything was ripped away from them. But they didn't know how to be on their own. They didn't know what that stress of that was like to not be surrounded. We know that connection is so important and so vital to our wellness. We've learned that now. But those kids, like your kids, Taryn, and yourself, struggled more than one of my kids who was a little bit more introverted. Like he was like, "Oh, life is good." But those are the kids that maybe the more introverted kids were the kids that you would worry about on a daily. But when COVID hit and we had this isolation, that completely flipped.
yes. We know that Zach has some hyperactivity
Taryn, where are you
components.
at? I mean, are you like by Jess in New York?
I'm in New York, yes. I live probably 4 minutes from Jess.
Okay.
I actually
Yeah,
coached baseball with her
you
husband.
guys were underneath very different restrictions than we were out here in
We
Utah.
were.
Oh
Yep.
yeah. We were micromanaged.
Yes. The law was getting
I
passed
don't
on
do
you
well with
guys.
that.
So I look at you and I think 400 pounds sickness, like there's no way. Looking at you now, thinking
Well, I'm
that's 5 years
tall.
ago. Wow.
I'm tall, so that helps a little bit. I'm 5'8". I'm still not where I want to be weight wise, but I've lost 180, I think 182 as of this morning.
182 pounds. That's absolutely incredible. So, what was the turning point? We've gone through all of these things, and I know we're just like skimming through it, but what was the turning point that you are like, well, I have to do something different?
I was diagnosed with MS, and the initial treatment for an MS flare is like a high dose of steroids. I did not want to do it inpatient because, again, my husband was still a firefighter. He was still working, and my kids were still young enough that they required
They
supervision.
needed you. Yeah.
Yes. So I did it as outpatient. And my girlfriend who has MS was like, you're going to feel great. You'll have so much energy. I mean, you won't sleep and you'll be starving, but you'll start to feel great. And that wasn't the case. I felt horrible. I slept 23 out of 24 hours of the day. I had weakness. I was vomiting. I had like acute steroid induced myopathy almost immediately. And by day 5 of my infusion, and I don't like to complain, the nurse came to unhook me after my last dose. And I just looked up at her and started crying. And I said, I'm so sorry. I don't feel good. And she rechecked my vitals, and my blood pressure was like 190 over 160. It was so bad.
Holy cow.
My normal blood pressure, even when I was at my heaviest, was like 120 over 80. Like I've never had comorbidities other than fat. Um, and my heart rate was 36.
Oh my gosh, Taryn.
So they wheeled me over to the ER immediately. I was given atropine. I was put on a defibrillator and I was terrified. And my husband was at the firehouse. So I'm downplaying everything, saying, they're just going to keep me for some observation. I'll let you know what's going on. I didn't have a good reaction to the steroids. And then I'm texting my best friend, like, I'm terrified, but I'm also bouncing between living my Grey's Anatomy fantasy and just yelling clear and hitting the button. Um, they said that was a terrible idea. Don't do it. So just that close, that brush with, honestly, with death, because 36 is not conducive to life, um, scared me. And then after spending 5 days in the hospital, the head neurologist, not even the one that diagnosed me, came to my room and told me that I didn't have MS, that I needed to educate myself on my diet, and then proceeded to give a whole story about the brothers who created Pumas and Adidas because Alan was cross branding that day, and then discharged me with no heart monitor. I'm still sitting in the high 30s, low 40s for my heart rate, having heart palpitations.
Like
The
medical neglect.
100%. I went home that
Wow.
night thinking I was going to die. Like I kissed my husband goodnight, said I loved him, and was hoping that he didn't have a corpse next to him in the morning. And I remember laying on my stomach with my fist like this. And every time my heart would like skip, I would bear down, like trying to regulate it. Um, and then I fell into such a bad depression because, well, I thought I had MS. I thought I had all the answers. And now I'm back to square one. And my doctor completely traumatized me. So I just sat on the couch for 3 months. And my girlfriend was like, go to a different doctor. Please see my doctor. Because, like I was telling you before, she has MS as well. And I went to see him, and he did the full workup, not just a brain scan, but my brain, my C spine, and my T spine. And while I only had one lesion in my brain, I had like three of them in my T spine.
Hmm.
Oh,
So he diagnosed me, and then I started on a DMT. And while I was dealing with that, I'm friends with a bariatric surgeon. So I texted him after I got started on treatment. And basically, the text said, I can't be MSy and fat. And while I would love to be less MSy, I can only choose to be less fat. But I don't think I can survive a surgery right now. I'm too medically fragile. So he put me in touch with his NP, and we started my journey in May of 2022 on Ozempic.
That's incredible. Thank goodness. I mean, when we think back to 2022, this was a time when people didn't know a lot about it other than significant weight loss. People were not being supported in the way that we know to support it now. But what that was doing for you was regardless saving your life. And now
100%.
we know that those medications Kylie and I recorded with somebody Jim, how it saved his life. It changed his kidney disease. He was in complete kidney failure, all of his cardiac risks. He was in trouble there. Like all of that same stuff was happening for you then unknowingly. Like you thought it was just losing weight, but obviously so much more change for you. So
So much more.
that was incredible that they had that to be able to put you on because it was also hard to get.
Yes. So like I said, I started at Ozempic because they didn't have the low doses for Wegovy at the time. Um, I, I think it's like 0.25 I
Yeah.
started at, and I stayed on that for a while to let my body adjust. I love the MP that I work with. I think she's phenomenal. I also think they gave me a little bit too much credit for my own nutrition and guidance because of the fact that I was a college athlete and am raising athletes. I think without that background, I might have floundered a little bit more.
Because there
Um,
wasn't, people didn't know to say prioritize protein, fiber, hydration, the
but
foundations.
she
People
told
didn't
me like
know.
increase your protein,
That's unusual. So that's amazing
but
that she did tell you that.
she did. But like that was it. Not here are the
yeah, no
proteins. Here's what you do.
How,
Right.
not how to
no.
do that.
Right. Or how much. It was just
Right.
increase your protein. So like by 5 grams.
Yeah.
Um, but I was fortunate because of the fact that I am raising wrestlers. I played softball in college. I do research for my kids because of the fact that they're high caliber athletes. I think vicariously because of that, I was able to direct my own nutrition. I didn't have the hair loss. I didn't have like the Ozempic face that everybody else gets because nobody knows that I'm on it
Right.
because I don't have the markers that are so prevalent now.
Right. And also, I mean, while significant weight loss, you've done this over a few years. So when we
Oh yeah.
talk about the fact that you've lost 180 pounds, you didn't lose 180 pounds in 6 months.
No, it's been years and I am very patient. Like I go up, I go down, I fluctuate. I don't
Which is
stress.
That
normal.
is key
Yeah, people don't
to
get that.
understand that.
It is first of all, anybody on any journey, whether it is I'm living my life, no dietary concerns, I'm not focused on it, or you are, there is a natural at least 5 pound swing that everybody always has. And even on a weight loss journey, you're going to hit plateaus. Like this is normal. So I'm so glad that you said that because I don't think that people pause to realize this is not turning up for more medicine. This is not, starving your like the reason that people get into these situations often are because they've lived life of extreme, either extreme eating and then extreme restriction, extreme exercise, like all these extremes, which has put us in positions of having this metabolic dysfunction. So your long, slow journey with plateaus, with a little bit of swing, so normal for everybody.
Yeah, the last time I plateaued was, I'm gonna say almost a year ago, and I
Okay.
sat for a while. And that's when I decided to make the change from semaglutide to tirzepatide, and I incorporated intermittent fasting.
Okay.
And I've lost another like 65 pounds since then.
Since then. Okay.
But
So
again, slow and steady.
we might have to hit record with you for a follow-up so you can walk us through what that looks like for you because there's so many different versions of intermittent fasting.
Oh, I do the 8 hours of eating, 16 hours of fasting.
Yeah, there you go.
Which is normal, right? Like that's
Yeah,
what
which
we
is so
should
normal.
have this window of like this is our eating, this is our day, this is what we're eating, and then resting our digestive system over this time. That's a pretty good window
Yeah,
for
and then if I'm hungry, I forgive myself and have something healthy.
right.
But
So you
it
listen
has
to your body.
definitely given me a little bit more control,
So
especially since I work 13-hour shifts.
yeah, long, crazy, stressful job and raising four children who are all on running different directions with all their many teams that they're on and not normal teams like travel teams. Like we're talking about high level young athletes. So pretty insanely busy schedule with a husband who's a fireman and doesn't have a normal 9 to 5 job. So hard life. All right, 180 pounds you've lost. And how are you feeling today?
I feel great. I don't think people talk about the anti-inflammatory aspect of the peptides enough because while I do flare still with my MS, because honestly, it's my fault because I don't listen to my cues or I push through. MS is not something that you should push through. So I don't listen well, even to myself. Um, the flares are a lot less acute. They knock me out a lot less. Um, Whereas before I would have 5 to 6 weeks where I would need to recover. Now I'm a couple of days here and there. Um, so it
That's
has
amazing.
benefited, yeah, it has benefited my chronic illness in significantly. And it's not just weight loss. That's a metabolic change.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you brought it in with the MS too. Like we just immediately think weight loss, but there's so much more it does with inflammation, with the nervous system. Like if you have MS or any other autoimmune disorder or nervous system or brain component, it's a no-brainer,
I agree.
literally, to
Okay.
take these things,
Yes,
these
I agree
GLPs and to
100%.
do the tirzepatide because of these additional components. But we just see the commercials that drive in weight loss, weight loss, weight loss because of the, what did I say at the beginning? Three-fourths of America
Three
are
quarters of
sitting in
Americans
those
are
shoes.
overweight. Yeah.
Yes,
But
I
there's
finally
just so
reached the
much more
I'm
to it.
just obese now, not morbidly obese. So
You look great. Like I would have never guessed what you've been through in your lifetime or like putting a number to the scale. For me, I don't care, but I don't think I've gotten on a scale since I think the only time I ever got on a scale was when I'm pregnant and they make you get on scales. Because there's just so much more than the number. And we want to pay attention to how you're feeling and how you are as like a mom, and you're not just your own sanity, but keeping your household sane. That's more important to me than any number on the scale.
Yeah, I agree. It's a bigger picture here. Taryn, before we finish up, is there anything that you want to make sure that you get out there for people to hear? I know the inflammation point was super important for you to get out there.
I think people need to realize that there isn't or shouldn't be a stigma to the
Agreed.
peptides. Um, they're a tool. I still had to change my way of eating, my way of thinking, my way of moving. I had to use it as a tool to make myself healthier. It wasn't just, oh, I took a shot and did nothing and it was magically off. I reconstructed like my entire life.
That's great.
For huge benefits too. Now, Taryn, real quick question before we let you go here. Are you just using tirzepatide or have you found a stack? Have you been adding some other peptides in?
As of right now, I'm only using tirzepatide, but I have been looking into BPC 157 as well.
Huh?
There are
And
other ones that
thymosin
I've
alpha 1
And I was
next.
going to say, and with an MS diagnosis, we know TA1. That's a big one to
It is.
for.
Unfortunately, though, I'm on a modified chemo drug as my DMT, and I think
See?
that's a
Oh, yep,
contraindication.
it is. Yep,
Okay.
yep, it is.
So if I ever get
What have you
off
got,
of my
MOTS-C? Can you
DMT,
do MOTS-C?
I actually just looked at that when Jess posted her video the other day.
Yesterday, yep.
But I'm just finishing wrestling season with my kids, and we were at States, and I do sports photography, so I had about 6,000 pictures to go
Fun.
through.
So
She's
what don't
busy.
you do? Holy
She's
mollies.
she's
Relax.
busy.
I don't relax.
Well, listen, before we wrap up, I want to say something to anybody that's listening that's heard parts of their own story in Taryn's story. Peptides, as we've talked about, they're not a shortcut. They're not an excuse to keep living in a way that contribute to an unhealthy life either, but they are an extremely powerful tool. But they also, as Taryn has mentioned, they work best when they're paired with lifestyle support. So sometimes those tools are layered into a healthy lifestyle because your body might already just be missing this. That was my story. But other times they're a tool that finally help people make those lifestyle changes they want to make that they wanted to make for years, but maybe they just were constantly fighting their own biology to achieve them. So whether you are somebody that's trying to lose 15 pounds or hundreds of pounds, the reality is that metabolism, hormones, inflammation, and biology, they all play a role in that journey. So that's why stories like Taryn's, they matter so much. They remind us that when the right tools are paired with the right support, people can really change the trajectory of their health. If you are curious about peptides, if you're ready to explore them in a safe and a responsible way, then you can start that journey with me. I help people understand how peptides work, use them alongside strong health foundations, and how to access them through trusted medical channels. So you can find me. My website is b2bwithjess.com. I share education and resources on my Instagram account at jessb.talkshealth. The goal isn't to just use peptides, it's using them in a way that actually supports your health long term. And that's what I help people do every day. So if you're ready to explore peptides the right way with strong foundations and the right guidance, I'd love to help you start that journey. Kylie?
What peptides should you take? Well, GLPs are always a great place to start. As Taryn mentioned, BPC 157 would be the next combination I would add. And then if you have any type of autoimmune or immune concern, a great support tool with that is thymosin alpha 1, as long as you don't have contraindications like Taryn mentioned. So if you're interested in any of these peptides, you can start off in two ways. One, you can grab a consultation with a peptide well-known physician, or two, you can just say, I'm ready and I can start an order right away. You'll get support through the telemedicine platform that we highly recommend. And all you have to do is get started at drkylieburton.com. All right, that's Pep Talk, Peptide Unpacked. See you next time.